So you've done the work, you've made the plans, but for some reason you just can't seem to hit your financial goals. What gives? Well, it turns out that handling money has a lot less to do with spreadsheets and a lot more to do with what's going on in our heads. Let's dive into the hidden mental traps that are quietly sabotaging our wealth. Look, you can read every book, you can master every single investing strategy, but if you don't understand your own emotions around money, you're just going to keep making the same mistakes over and over. Your choices might feel rational in the moment, but that right there, that's often the very first trap. It's a really frustrating question, isn't it? We know what we should be doing, but our actions just don't seem to line up. Well, the answer isn't quite what you'd think. Let's break it down. Okay, first things first. Financial success has very little to do with how smart you are. Seriously, you do not need to be a math genius to build wealth. It's not about complex formulas, it's about getting a handle on your own behavior. And here's the fundamental problem. Your spreadsheet doesn't get anxious and sell everything when the market dips, but we do. That's why aiming to be reasonable with your money works so much better than trying to be coldly rational. Reasonable is something you can stick with, and in the long run, sticking with it is what actually builds wealth. And, being human leads us straight into our next big hurdle. We all have these invisible biases, these stories we tell ourselves that completely shape our financial worldview, and we usually don't even realize it. These are the traps of perception. This right here highlights a huge perception trap. We judge wealth by what we can see, right? The fancy car, the expensive watch. But real wealth, it's invisible. It's the money that hasn't been spent. It's the investments that are quietly growing, giving you freedom and options. Put simply, looking rich is spending, but being rich is saving. And this brings us to something called the man in the car paradox. Think about it. When you see a Ferrari drive by, you don't really think, wow, that driver is so cool. No. You think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. We buy stuff to get respect from people who aren't even really looking at us. They're just using our things as a daydream for themselves. Our brains are just wired for good stories. We hear about that one person who won the lottery, and all of a sudden, buying a ticket feels like a pretty good idea, even though the odds are like 1 in 300 million. Why? Because the story is compelling. We don't picture the millions of people who lost, we picture ourselves on the yacht. So this brings up a really powerful question we should all be asking ourselves. Whenever a financial decision feels exciting or really appealing, it's worth taking a second to ask, is this based on the data, or am I just buying into a story I want to be true? The most dangerous stories are always the ones we don't even realize we're telling ourselves. But it's not just what's going on in our heads. We also tend to misunderstand these powerful external forces, things like luck, risk, and the absolutely mind-bending power of time. Just think about this story for a second. Bill Gates' success wasn't only about his genius. It was also about a 1 in a million stroke of luck to have access to a school computer back in the 1960s. But at that very same school, his brilliant friend Ken Evans was hit by the exact opposite, a 1 in a million stroke of tragic risk. It's such a stark reminder that things are never as good or as bad as they seem on the surface. And speaking of the long game, let's look at Warren Buffett. He started investing when he was just 10 years old. And you can see here, his wealth grew steadily, for sure. He was a millionaire at 30, had hundreds of millions by 50. But the real magic, the really mind-blowing stuff, that happened much, much later. Get this, over $156 billion of Buffett's total net worth was earned after his 65th birthday. Just let that sink in for a moment. His true skill wasn't just being a great investor. It was being a great investor for over 80 years. The most powerful force in finance isn't some kind of genius. It's time. And if you want to stay in the game that long, you have to be able to stomach the ride. We see the market go down and we think it's a punishment, like a fine for doing something wrong. But that's just the wrong way to look at it. Market volatility isn't a fine. It's the fee you have to pay to get those long-term returns. It's the price of admission. So, all of this brings us to our final and honestly, our most important section. After all is said and done, what's the actual point of building wealth? What is the ultimate prize we're all after? We're taught to save up for things, a car, a house, a vacation, but the true purpose of saving is to create options. It's that little gap between your ego and your income. It's what gives you the flexibility to handle a crisis, to jump on an opportunity, or to just wait for the right move. It's your buffer against all of life's inevitable surprises. And ultimately, this is what it all boils down to. The greatest thing that wealth can buy isn't a bigger house or a faster car. It is the absolute freedom to control your own time, to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. And let's just end on this thought. This is the goal. It's not a number in a bank account. It's a feeling. The feeling of waking up and not being tied to anyone or anything. So the final question isn't really how to get more money. It's how to get more freedom. What would you do if you had it?